This is Dr. Miller. We're going to go over your first assignment, and the goal of this first assignment is to get you familiar with types of photography, types or genres of photography. And what you will do to complete the assignment is you're going to create a document, and you're going to insert into that document some examples of the types of photographs that we're going to discuss. And you're going to select those from Flickr. You're not actually going to take photos yourself for this. What I really want you to do is to be able to use your eyes to see these types of photos and not worry about actually taking them yourself. You're going to have plenty of opportunity in the class to take every one of these types that we're going to talk about. And the types are abstract, and we'll describe all of these briefly in just a minute. But abstract is not going to be the one you're going to start with. It'll be actually the last of the genres that you're going to take, but you're going to find some abstract ones for this exercise. Close-up, documentary, and I kind of have two subcategories here, one of which is candid, which is the type that you're typically going to take, and the other is photojournalism, which in my definition, photojournalism is where you're paid to take documentary photos. Then we have the landscape or panorama photography, portrait, and of course a lot of you have already expressed interest in taking portraits, and still life. Let's look at these. Okay, so now we're going to look at every one of these. The first is abstract. What are the characteristics of abstract photography? Well, it's an image that doesn't really look like it belongs to something specific. It's either created in such a fashion that it looks not like something real, or in some cases it may be just a portion of something and it looks a bit abstract. I want to go back to the first slide up here. This one right here is beginning to take on some aspects of being abstract because it's really just a detail of a log cabin. So here are some examples that I've got of abstract. And this one is definitely wildly abstract. And it was created using a photo editing program that I use called Photoshop Elements. And here's another one. This is perhaps a little bit less abstract in the sense that you can see that this is clearly a trumpet here, but it definitely doesn't look like anything you would see in real life, therefore it is abstract. The next genre is close-up, and a close-up is an image that tightly frames a person or an object. Honestly, I've had students that have really struggled with this concept, that a close-up needs to be close to the subject. It doesn't have to be a person, but its essential element is that it's very tightly framed. That is to say, the person or the object, the subject, is going to be very dominant. And typically you're not seeing a whole lot of the surroundings. This term close-up is also used in motion pictures and television production, so it carries over. Here's some examples of some close-ups. This is a praying mantis, and that is a pretty close-in shot. This is actually a detail from a mural, but taking this, it becomes a close-up. This is a close-up of a person. You could consider this to be a portrait. It's also a close-up, and this is a close-up as well. Documentary photography, well, a document is basically chronicling events. So your photographs that chronicle events, which can be significant events, they could be like a parade, or it could be even a sporting event. But it also could be part of everyday life. So professional photojournalism documents things, and people get paid for it. But you can also shoot documentary as an amateur. The key to the documentary style is to really capture the moment. Sometime during the event you're at, there's going to be a significant moment. That's the moment you want to capture with your camera. Here's some examples. I like to take photographs of musical performances. So here's 3 that I took. This is St. Paul and the Broken Bones from Birmingham, and a really great soul group. So those are examples of how I documented this performance. Now the candid side of it, for the candid side of it, a photograph that is captured without creating a posed appearance. Now, quite honestly, I believe there are photographs that we think are candid that are actually staged. But if you do that, you want to avoid the appearance of any prior preparation. The essence is that it's a photograph, a candid photograph, is taken without posing. Right? Here are some documentary examples. When you do a documentary event, and this was a christening of the, and this was a dedication of the mural that you can see on the building in the background. And when I document something like this event, one of the things I want to do is to get a shot that is kind of far back enough so that you can kind of see what's going on. So you can see they've set up a tent or 2, and there's people gathering for this. I also, when I document things, want to take some photographs of people that kind of capture the spirit, capture the mood, or capture the moment. So there was some music going on, and these folks over here were kind of rocking out to it. Now they're obviously not posing for this, so it's a candid shot, but it's a documentary shot too. And this is another shot, obviously. This is Mayor Andy Burke, Chattanooga's mayor, and he's not aware that I'm taking his photograph. So those are examples from the documentary side. Let's look now at the landscape, sometimes called a panorama. It's a wide angle view that represents the physical space you see in front of you. This term is also used in painting and drawing and filmmaking. Sometimes thought of being scenery. Typically, you would not necessarily have people in a panorama. You could, but if they're there, they really don't need to be prominent. So here's a couple of examples of landscapes that I shot. 2 very different areas, one in the Caribbean and one in England. And then you might recognize this as Stonehenge. So this type of scenery shot is a landscape shot. The portrait. Portrait photography, or portraiture, is where you have a person or perhaps a group of people, and you're trying to capture the expression, the personality, and the mood of the subject. So you're actually going to be working with the person that is posing for this. the focus of the photography is most often the person's face. And that's a concept that's hard for some people to accept. Now, you could say the entire body with some background can be there, but if it is the subject, the person still needs to be dominant. You can't just point a camera at your kids playing in the background and say it's a portrait. So here's some examples. Now, this one on the left, technically it's a musical event, and the singer is very into her performance, but I can tell you just from what transpired before she sang that she saw that I was standing there and that I was going to take her photograph, and she actually kind of posed for me while she was singing the song. So I would consider that to be a portrait. Now, this is more typically what we think of as a portrait, and you might recognize Lisa Brock here on the right, who teaches over in the nursing area at Sneed State, and her husband Marty. And they were clearly posing for this photo. Now, they were actually posing for somebody that had a camera just to the left of me. But oftentimes, when you take a portrait photo, you can experiment with having them look directly at the camera or looking off to the side. Either way can work, it just depends. There's a category that we call the still life. And this is typically not going to be anything living. It's typically going to be even small grouping of objects. And with the still life, the photographer is involved not just in snapping the photograph with their camera, but in actually setting these different elements in a design fashion. So it's said that still life photographers make pictures, they don't take them. And there's something to that for sure. So here's some still life examples. This is from a Zen garden. I didn't actually arrange this. I just took the photograph of it, but it was clearly very specifically laid out. This is actually Fozzie the Bear, and it was at Disney World, and they were selling these Muppets, and they were in a barrel, kind of a tub. And so I just thought that was kind of an interesting photograph. So I didn't really arrange it, I just recognized it. But this would qualify as a still life. And then finally, this is baskets. Another still life example. I didn't actually arrange this. This was at a farmer's market, and I simply took a photograph. And I did manipulate this using photo editing, so you can see it looks more like a painting than a photograph. And that's a technique that we'll learn about later on in the class. I think it's something you'll really enjoy doing. I do a lot of what I call watercolor versions of my photographs. So these are the 6 types of photography: abstract, close-up, documentary, landscape, portrait, and still life. Now, what I want you to do for this assignment is to find photographs in these 6 different types. And this is how you will proceed with this assignment. Remember, the goal of this assignment is for you to become familiar with these types of photography. That doesn't mean for this assignment you'll actually take these photographs. You're simply going to find them. And you're going to find them on Flickr. And there's a separate video that explains about Flickr. But what you're going to do is go into Flickr, and you can select from anywhere in Flickr 2 photographs for each type or genre. So that's a total of 12 different photographs that you're going to find. You're going to copy those photographs and create a PowerPoint or Google Slide document, and then you will insert the photographs on each one on a separate slide or page that has a label with the category. So for portrait, you'll have portrait 1 with one of the two that you've selected, and then you'll have portrait 2 with a second one that you've selected. Then I want you to save this document that you've created as a PDF file, and that's explained also in the other video, but basically you do a save as, and then I want you to use this naming, which is to say assignment 1 with your last name. Then you just simply upload that PDF file in Blackboard. So if you have any questions, just send me an email.